Hello and welcome to the Hub MT YouTube channel podcast brought to you by European Digital Innovation Hub and powered by MDIA, Malta Digital Innovation Authority. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Dylan Attard, who is a surgical trainee, graduated in 2017. He went to sit for Masters in Knowledge-Based Training the year after, whilst completing his foundation years training at Mater Dei Hospital and eventually finishing off basic surgical training. He always had a passion for entrepreneurship, medtech, digital health, and events, and got the chance to combine all at once when he founded the MedTech World Summit, a leading conference branding around the world. So, my first question to you, obviously coming from a medical field, what inspired you to organize the MedTech World Summit, where we're seeing health and tech and putting them together?
Yes, so I've always loved surgery. I'm quite happy that I actually got the chance to study medical school, to get to work firsthand with patients, but I always felt a little bit restricted working in a hospital, tending to one patient at a time. I always loved events, entrepreneurship, startups, so it was quite natural for me to try and organize an event tailored around the Maltese budding and emerging medtech industry to eventually put Malta's name on the map when it comes to the medtech industry, and hopefully in the coming months and years continue getting medtech companies from abroad to set up here and eventually take off from here.
What are the advancements and benefits, I would say, of healthcare through digital health?
Right, so when it comes to healthcare, there's a lot of misbalances, I guess, between different countries of how they do healthcare. So at one point, we were getting very accustomed up until a few years ago to start managing our bank finances on using a mobile. Start like ordering groceries with a touch of a button. But when it comes to healthcare, it was quite outdated. Essentially, when it comes to hospitals, and even more when they're managed by different governments and through public funding, all they would care about is that at least they're saving the patients' lives and that they're doing what they're supposed to mean in terms of treating for acutely care and patients as well as chronic care. But when it comes to how healthcare is dealt with in terms of the effectiveness of it, in terms of the smoothness of it, in terms of how easy we're making our healthcare practitioners' lives as well as the patients, it was always not taken care of. So thankfully, I guess, especially after the pandemic and during the pandemic, we started realizing the benefits of technologies being applied within healthcare, and different governments, different hospital systems across the world were trying to latch on any technologies that they were trying to get their hands on to help them beat the pandemic. And now that the pandemic is rather more or less over, I guess, they're looking to see how they can finally start investing in different digital health solutions, as well as medtech devices, medtech solutions, to try and improve their healthcare. And not just improve their healthcare. Essentially, one of the ultimate benefits of all of this is that hospitals can actually start decreasing their costs, because eventually when you're using, for example, AI in medicine or AI in radiology, telemedicine, you're treating patients with less costs. So this even more importantly for a government perspective, if you're running hospitals on through public funding, or if you're running a private healthcare hospital.
During these podcasts, we're focusing on AI in different industries, and I must say that this one would be a very sensitive industry, the medical, because people associate medical things to more or less one-to-one, a very personal experience. So if you talk about tech or something when it comes to tech in a medical field, probably there'll be some resistance, some sort of form of resistance. Have you experienced this? And maybe in practical terms, you could give us some examples of how can this be achieved?
Sure. Speaking of resistance, I came across it even when I was working as a doctor, and that's something that I'm trying to, possibly that's why I'm doing all of this, especially when it comes to healthcare practitioners and not just doctors. We're essentially speaking about nurses, physiotherapists, and one who's working in a hospital and treating the patients. Some of these have graduated and done their medical school and nursing training and whatever else they needed 10, 15, 20, 30 more years ago. And they always were accustomed to doing things their own way and using one method. So when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to AI and radiology, some might be skeptical that it's a waste of time. Others might think that it's going to replace their job. But that's what we're trying to do essentially. Even when it comes to the younger doctors, you could see them speaking to their consultants in hospital. It's all about trying to convince the decision makers within hospital, some of which might not even be coming from a healthcare background, that when it comes to AI and technology, AI in healthcare, it's there to help a healthcare practitioner do their job. So it's not there to actually take over and possibly, like, if, for example, we can speak about AI in radiology. So, to read an X-ray or an MRI or any other imaging, you would need a qualified radiologist to read an X-ray. AI might get to do the same thing that a radiologist does, 1/10 of the time that a radiologist would take. So there's this kind of people being skeptical about us, or rather our health, being determined by computer programs as opposed to people who've studied medicine their whole lives. But moving forward, we're seeing more and more specialties, including radiology, trying to maximize different technologies, not just AI, to help make their work more efficient, which is what essentially we're after. Because if you're a radiologist, for example, I'm going back to radiology, and you can read 5 X-rays in 30 minutes with aided by AI, it's better than reading 2 X-rays in 1 minute, because that means you're going to get to more patients quicker.
True, very true. Besides, I would say the job-threatening challenge that some people would think their jobs are going to be replaced by a computer, by a machine, or by a robot. What other challenges would this industry face, the medical industry, when it comes to AI?
I think the second biggest challenge would be the hospital's infrastructure. So, we're dealing with hospitals, clinics, and healthcare systems who have been operating for a good 50 to 100 years. Some computers and IT infrastructure might not even be equipped to deal with such sophisticated programs. Or when it comes to sharing of imaging or other data online, is our hospital system uploading all the data swiftly onto the cloud to be able to be accessed remotely? So that's another challenge. And different healthcare systems, different governments, need to actually realize these problems and start investing in adequate solutions to be able to welcome any advancements in technologies down the line. Because AI has been a buzzword for a good number of years in the past. It's only now that it's kind of been resurfaced through ChatGPT, because everyone started using ChatGPT.
Exactly.
So I'm quite excited, and God knows what else we can do eventually down the line in a good number of years, be it with AI or any other solution and technology that they can come up with.
Could you explain how your roadshow events in various cities help identify startups, and how all this ties to the Malta MedTech World Summit?
Sure. So when it comes to the MedTech World Summit, it's essentially an event, an opportunity for everyone who's involved in medtech, in healthcare or digital health, to connect with each other and get to know what's out there. So if you're a startup founder looking for investors, we're looking to connect both. If you're a medical doctor, if you're a healthcare practitioner, and you're looking to get to know what new technologies there are, which you might eventually be able to adopt in your healthcare hospital, we have ample of opportunities, be it hearing through content on stage, be it networking with others, to get to know what's out there. So this is the main, I would say, whole gist of the MedTech World Summit as it stands. And obviously our biggest event is the one we organize in Malta, because it's our home base and that's what we essentially care about. One of the main aims of the conference is to push the local stakeholders to try and invest more in medtech and eventually nurture a medtech industry, be it thankfully with MDA support, with DHub support, other entities, both from the public sector and the private sector. So this is the main whole gist of our flagship conference. But in parallel, we need to realize that Malta, essentially, we're a small island. There's obviously loads of opportunities, but we need help from around us, be it mainland Europe, be it the UK, be it the Middle East, be it North America. And the roadshow series of events, that's what they're for. They're basically there for us to network with different ecosystems, with different key thought leaders from around the world. And we've done quite a number of them, actually. Be it from Dubai to Toronto, we've been to The Hague, we've been to Istanbul, we've been to London, and we've organized events across all of these cities. And they essentially all helped us to promote the Malta MedTech World Summit and eventually invite them over to our main conference, which is held every year towards the end of the year. This year it was held just a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Next year scheduled for November. So that's how everything ties in together.
What feedback do you receive besides obviously this networking between one country and another, but what sort of feedback do you receive when it comes to the medical, technical world?
So our main selling point has always been that Malta is a very good test-based island. I can't really try and pitch that when it comes to companies who are based in United Kingdom, mainland Europe or North America, that I'm going to try and convince them to come here to simply increase their revenue from a business perspective. Because essentially Malta, at one point, we can only be a maximum of 600,000 patients. But what we've always tried to pitch and sell is purely that Malta serves as a very good test-based location, us being just one island, one big main hospital. Every patient's data, history, files is centralized around that hospital. We speak English as our language, euro as our currency, several entities like MDIA who are trying to help them validate their solutions and set up here. So that's our main, that has always been our main selling point.
What would you say are your future plans for expanding the reach and the impact of the MedTech World Summit, and how will you continue to support the healthcare startups?
Sure. So, I mean, we've been doing this for the past 3 years, so we've kind of already consolidated our name as a conference brand. Everyone involved within MedTech and digital health is getting to know about the Malta MedTech World Summit, and people are loving the idea of coming over to Malta, exotic island possibly. They're literally falling in love. What we're trying to eventually in the future is work on getting companies to set up here, and not just set up here purely for them to have an office and an address on a website or an email or whatever, but we want companies to come here, invest in Malta, carry out their R&D here, and possibly validate their medical devices or digital health solutions to eventually become influencers and convince the rest of the industry to follow suit. And hopefully Malta eventually might have another budding industry in the next couple of years.
And your final thought, and there's obviously a concluding comment to our podcast today, the industry, the medical industry, when it comes to AI, your message to our viewers.
I mean, when it comes to healthcare, I deem myself quite lucky because we're dealing with an industry that is essentially helping to make our healthcare practitioners' work lives better and save more patients and patients' lives better. So in general, I mean, I'm quite lucky. I feel quite lucky to be able to work within the healthcare industry. And when it comes to AI in healthcare and technologies, I'm trying to encourage as many healthcare practitioners to be entrepreneurial within their own hospitals, within their own working systems, and try to convince their decision makers to adopt any technologies they can get their hands on, because essentially the change needs to come from the ground up. You can't always rely on your superiors, on your seniors to implement any changes within your departments if you're the one. Not speaking about what you're looking to improve within these different departments.
I think when you think about it, when it comes to medicine, for example, you can see where the changes are and where the shifts are, and they're quite rapid of what we discover, even the longevity on our lives. So I think why not when it comes to the medical care, we shouldn't have that same investment in the AI.
Exactly.
And all that.
And I mean, there's so much potential to AI. And even more importantly, everyone's getting to know about AI. So we're not speaking about some kind of technology which barely no one knows about. And one of the easiest things about AI is that it's rather easy, that once you actually implement it, it's rather easy to use. Everyone got to know about ChatGPT. It's like a simple Google search. Everyone is now becoming an expert of how to use it. So why not do the same in healthcare?
Thank you very much. That was Dr. Dylan Attard, and thank you for watching us.
Thank you.